Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today something shocking just happened. The global spotlight has suddenly shifted toward a region that many did not expect to become the center of quiet diplomacy. As tensions between Iran and the United States reached a dangerous peak, the possibility of a full-scale conflict began to feel very real. Military movements, strategic warnings, and political rhetoric all pointed toward escalation. But behind the scenes, something else was unfolding, something far less visible, yet potentially far more powerful. Pakistan, often viewed through the lens of regional politics, unexpectedly emerged as a key player in mediation. At the heart of this development was a series of discreet diplomatic efforts, reportedly led by Pakistan's military leadership. These efforts were not loud, not public, and not designed for headlines. Yet, they may have played a crucial role in cooling down a situation that was on the brink of spiraling out of control. To understand how Pakistan stepped into this role, we first need to look at the broader context. The Iran-US relationship has been tense for decades, marked by mistrust, sanctions, and occasional direct confrontations. But recent developments pushed both sides closer than ever to open conflict. Military deployments in the region increased, naval forces were repositioned, and both sides issued strong warnings. Analysts began to talk about timelines, scenarios, and potential flashpoints. In such a volatile environment, even a small miscalculation could have triggered a major war. This is where mediation becomes not just important, but essential. However, mediation between two deeply opposed powers like Iran and the United States is not easy. It requires trust, credibility, and access, qualities that not many countries possess simultaneously. Pakistan, interestingly, holds a unique position. It has historically maintained relations with both Iran and the United States. While its alliance with the US has gone through ups and downs, it still retains communication channels that are valuable in times of crisis. At the same time, Pakistan shares a border with Iran and has maintained diplomatic and economic ties with Tehran. This dual connection creates a rare opportunity. It allows Pakistan to act as a bridge, a communicator, and potentially a mediator. But having the opportunity is one thing, acting on it is another. According to various reports and political observations, Pakistan's leadership chose to act, and they did so quietly. The idea of secret diplomacy is not new in international relations. In fact, many of the world's most important agreements have been shaped behind closed doors, away from media attention. The reason is simple: public negotiations often come with pressure, expectations, and political risks. Secret diplomacy, on the other hand, allows leaders to explore options without immediate backlash. In this case, Pakistan's approach appears to have followed that model. Instead of making public statements or taking visible positions, it focused on communication. Messages were reportedly passed, concerns were shared, and possible solutions were explored. These efforts may not have been visible, but they were likely constant and carefully managed. One of the key elements in successful mediation is timing. Acting too early can make efforts irrelevant, while acting too late can make them ineffective. Pakistan's involvement seems to have come at a critical moment, when tensions were high, but before any irreversible actions were taken. Another important factor is neutrality. For a mediator to be effective, both sides must believe that it is not acting in favor of the other. This is a delicate balance, especially in a situation involving powerful nations with deep suspicions. Pakistan's ability to maintain this balance, even if temporarily, may have been one of the reasons its efforts gained traction. But diplomacy is not just about messages and meetings, it is also about perception. Both Iran and the United States needed to see value in de-escalation. They needed to believe that stepping back would not be seen as weakness. This is where a mediator can play a critical role by framing de-escalation as a strategic choice rather than a concession. Pakistan's role may have involved exactly that, by facilitating communication and helping both sides understand each other's positions. It could have contributed to a shift in perception. Instead of seeing each other only as adversaries, both sides may have been able to recognize the risks of escalation more clearly. Of course, it is important to understand that mediation does not mean resolution. It does not magically solve all issues or remove all tensions. What it does is create space for dialogue, space for reconsideration, and space for alternative paths. In the case of Iran and the United States, even creating that space is a significant achievement. It reduces the immediate risk of conflict and opens the door for further diplomatic efforts. And in a world where conflicts can escalate rapidly, even a small delay can make a big difference. Pakistan's involvement also highlights a broader trend in global politics. Middle powers, countries that are not superpowers but still hold regional influence, are increasingly playing important roles in conflict resolution. They may not have the military strength of larger nations, but they often have the flexibility and connections needed for mediation. This shift is important because it diversifies the diplomatic landscape. It shows that influence is not only about power, but also about positioning, relationships, and timing. Pakistan's actions, if confirmed and sustained, could be seen as an example of this evolving dynamic. At the same time, such involvement comes with risks. Acting as a mediator in a high-stakes conflict can expose a country to pressure from both sides. It requires careful navigation, clear objectives, and strong internal coordination. Any misstep can damage credibility and reduce effectiveness. For Pakistan, maintaining this role will depend on consistency. One successful effort is not enough. Mediation is an ongoing process, and it requires continuous engagement. It also requires managing domestic expectations, as international actions often have internal political implications. Another interesting aspect of this situation is how it changes perceptions of Pakistan on the global stage. Often associated with security challenges and regional tensions, Pakistan is now being discussed in the context of diplomacy and mediation. This shift, even if temporary, can have long-term implications. It can open doors for greater involvement in international forums, increase diplomatic leverage, and improve overall image. However, sustaining this requires more than one successful effort. It requires a consistent strategy and a clear vision of its role in global affairs. For Iran and the United States, the immediate question is whether this moment of reduced tension will lead to something more permanent. Will it result in formal negotiations? Will it lead to policy changes? Or will it simply be a pause before the next round of confrontation? The answer depends on multiple factors, including internal politics, regional dynamics, and global pressures. But one thing is clear: the presence of a mediator, even an informal one, changes the equation. It introduces new possibilities and new pathways. It is also worth noting that mediation is not always visible. Many of its most important moments happen behind closed doors, in conversations that are never recorded or reported. This makes it difficult to measure success, but it also highlights the importance of trust. Trust is the foundation of any diplomatic effort. Without it, communication breaks down and misunderstandings increase. Building trust between two adversaries is extremely difficult, but a mediator can help by acting as a reliable channel. Pakistan's ability to serve as that channel, even temporarily, suggests a level of credibility that is often overlooked. It shows that influence is not always about visibility, but about effectiveness. As the situation continues to evolve, the role of mediation will remain critical. Whether it is Pakistan or another country, the need for communication will not disappear. In fact, it will likely increase as global tensions become more complex. The story of this moment is not just about conflict, but about the possibility of avoiding it. It is about the quiet efforts that often go unnoticed, yet have the power to change outcomes. It is about the idea that even in the most tense situations, dialogue is still possible. And perhaps most importantly, it is about the reminder that global politics is not only shaped by confrontation, but also by cooperation. Even when disagreements are deep and long-standing, there is always a space, however small, for understanding. Pakistan's emergence as a potential mediator in this scenario is a reflection of that space. It shows that roles can change, perceptions can shift, and new players can step forward when the moment demands it. Whether this role will continue, expand, or fade remains to be seen, but for now, it has added a new dimension to an already complex situation. It has introduced an element of diplomacy into a narrative that was increasingly dominated by the language of conflict. As we move forward, the focus will remain on what comes next. Will tensions continue to decrease? Will formal talks begin? Or will new challenges emerge? These are questions that only time can answer, but one thing is certain: the events unfolding right now are a reminder of how quickly situations can change and how important it is to have channels of communication open. Because in the end, the difference between conflict and cooperation often comes down to whether people are still willing to talk. And in this case, it seems that someone made sure that conversation never stopped,